The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Thursday, January 25th, Friday, January 26th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott. Behind the hair, we are live in the Great White North in the Caribou region of central British Columbia, stationed on top of the mountains, still snowy, at SOR headquarters. Good to have you with us. We are 150,000 strong. Nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down to Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. On the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live at spacedoutradio.com, The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. You can follow us all over social media, like right now on periscope.tv. Hi, how you doing, Periscope? Good to have you with us tonight. We're also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. We also have a GoFundMe account going on right now. We're looking to improve our broadcast system as we look to go to terrestrial radio. Do me a favor. Head over to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. And share the post. Donate. It doesn't matter. It means the same. If you could do it, great. We also have our Patreon account. We're firing it up again. We're building some cool features on there. Once again, find us at patreon.com/Spaced Out Radio. If you head to our website, Spaced Out Radio, you can go to the Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. You can check out my latest blog there as well. Got great videos as well from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. Tonight, we head into the forests and bayous of the South, where a strange bipedal creature lurks in the shadows. You may not see it around, but its smell is rotten and foul. And of course, it's enough to make you want to run away from the unknown. This is an example of what a lot of people say is the legendary Skunkape. And when its premise is around, this is the clue that is given. Much like the Bigfoot on the West Coast, the Skunkape is said to, well, be an ape-like creature, but with a more vicious streak in it than its western cousin. Tonight, we're joined by Stacy Brown Jr. for the entire 3 hours. In the first 2, we're going to talk to Skunkape and Bigfoot. What's the difference? In hour number 3, we're going to go over to New Mexico, where we will discuss Stacy's new movie about the 70th anniversary of the Roswell incident. Stacy Brown, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you doing? Thank you so much.
I'm doing all right, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I am doing great. I love talking Bigfoot. I love talking about cryptids. We haven't really, in our 3-year history, delved into the real subject of Skunkape. So I am really, really looking forward to this tonight. And, you know, when we talked before the show, to hear that you have done a movie on the Roswell incident 70 years later, I mean, this just brings it full on, man, because cryptids and aliens, that's my stuff. That's my favorite topics around here.
Yeah, mine too. So hopefully I can shed some light on the subject for you.
Well, let's get into it right now, man. Let's get into it right now. How did you get started in looking into cryptids? Because for a lot of people, they just don't walk into this field out of curiosity. It's usually a sighting or some sort of family trait that's been passed down the line.
Well, that was kind of what it was for me. Me and my dad used to watch these shows when I was like 5, 6 years old. Like Unsolved Mysteries really did a big number on me. Seeing that guy up there, he was, you know, they had the music set and it looked real kind of like spooky and stuff, the way they filmed it. And when they would do the Bigfoot and the aliens and stuff like that, it just always was, you know, I was drawn to it. But so I was looking for Bigfoot at a young age of like 6. I thought he lived in the adjacent lot, like the vacant lot across the street. It was a wooded area. So I would like go out there with this, you know, shoulder VCR camcorder, and I would be looking for Bigfoot in the woods, and kind of, you know, went through my life doing music and stuff, and got married and had some kids, and then me and my dad were looking for a way to get, you know, just like father-son time. And so we started going out, and we were saying we were Bigfoot hunting. Now, we were just more or less camping and hanging out, but that's kind of what got it started. We were, you know, it's just kind of like a family thing, something to hang out. And then, you know, when I had an encounter, it kind of changed it, but we were already doing it, you know what I mean?
Well, that's quite an interesting way to get rid of the ladies for a weekend or a night, is saying we're going out looking for Bigfoot, where you and Dad could go hang around a campfire, have a couple of beers, and share some stories. When did it become full-on real that you were Bigfoot hunting?
I guess November 6th, 2011 is when it kind of changed. My dad had cancer at the time, so he couldn't go on this particular trip that we had planned for like a few months ahead. We were going to a piece of property where there was supposedly a lot of Bigfoot activity. Well, I went out there with my bass player from my band, and, you know, we had an encounter that night that it just changed it. You know, I mean, people can tell you these things are real all day long. but unless you actually have that encounter, you kind of don't get it. You know what I mean? But when you do, I guess there's two ways you can take it. You can either be like a hermit and not say nothing because you'll get, you know, the ridicule from everybody, or you can do like I did, and it's like, okay, hey, now I know these things are real. I want to prove this. I want to be the one that, you know, proves it to everybody else who says they ain't real. Just says I'm wasting my time. I'm, you know, crazy out in the woods hunting a big hairy monster. I want to hand them that plate of crow, you know, at this point. And it was like, there you go. Now you can eat it. So I guess that was the day, November 11th, November 6th, 2011, that it all changed.
And, you know, it was 2 years after that where my wife and I, we were ATVing, and we were coming up a trail, and her dad happened to be with us, and I was way ahead, about, you know, 50, 60 yards ahead, and her dad was driving her quad, and she was on the back of it, and so she was kind of paying attention in the woods, and she actually saw a Sasquatch following the quad, but about 50, 60 feet into the bushes, and it was going tree to tree and hiding in there. She didn't tell me for a couple of weeks that she had seen it because she just wasn't too sure. But I mean, with the amount of strangeness that we were having here, it was pretty phenomenal. And we lived in Mission, British Columbia at that point. And, you know, I did a little bit of research online after she told me, and apparently in 2003, because we were kind of riding along a trail right above what they call Davis Lake, and in Davis Lake at the far end, you can, you know, there's a nice sandy beach there, and apparently there were two fishermen, you know, fishing off the shore there, two young guys doing an evening of fishing, and they actually got chased out of there on foot by a Sasquatch in 2003. So it wasn't the first time that, you know, something there had happened. And then later on that year, just a few months later, I actually had my encounter with two Sasquatch about 100 yards, or within 100 feet of us, pardon me. And it was me and a buddy of mine in a forest. And, you know, it's a big creature, man. So I know exactly what you're talking about, that people really do not believe it. You don't know the feeling of it until you are in that position, as you said.
Yeah, and back to what you said about, I guess, your wife not telling you she's seen one in the woods. That's just... It kind of perplexed me. My mom did that to me one time, and this was years after I had already been heavy into research. We were at a place where we were doing Bigfoot research, and I had my kids there, and we were kind of having a cookout and stuff. And all of a sudden, my mom just kind of got the kids up and went inside and didn't say anything. And then, like 6 months later, she tells me that evening, she had looked over to the tree line, and there was one watching us. And she's like, it looked peaceful, and I knew you would chase it. So I didn't tell you, because, I mean, I had my whole team there, and that's what we were there doing. And her not telling me was just like, why didn't you share that? Why didn't you share that piece of information with me at the time? It would have been great. So,
well, I mean, I think when it comes to people, and I'm sure you have that down south, I mean, when you see something that you were not supposed to believe or see, something that's not supposed to exist, it's hard to translate what you actually saw in your mind, isn't it?
It is. And I think that's why a lot of people just, you know, like I said, it's something that changes you, because it's not supposed to be there. This is the thing that we, you know, are told by our grandparents when we're kids, so we don't run out into the swamp, you know. This is a monster that you think is under your bed, but when you actually see it, you know, with your own eyes, it's one of those moments where you not only feel very small, but you probably feel very alone too at the same time. You know I did.
It's funny because a lot of times on this show, we will ask, or people will make comments, well, why didn't you take photos? Why didn't you, if you had your cell phone on you, why didn't you record the event or anything like that? And I always like to ask people, how would you act? And when they, and most people will say, well, I would have done this or I would have done that. And it's such the wrong answer, because 9.9 times out of 10, the people who have this experience for the first time or even the third or fourth time, you don't want to miss anything of it. You don't want to take the chance of trying to fumble around with your cell phone and miss what you're seeing. Your brain is recording it, and your brain is trying to comprehend exactly what has happened, even though it can't understand because it's not programmed to understand that Sasquatch are real. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that I notice, where a lot of people, they say, well, I would have grabbed my cell phone, or I would have grabbed my gun, or I would have grabbed this, or taken a video of that. You don't understand. You just don't understand. Do you break that down to people too?
Well, yeah, there's something I say to people that, because everybody's like, nowadays, everybody has a cell phone. And they're like, why are there not clear pictures, or why are there not more pictures? And the thing I tell them is to, okay, go on a hike, keep your cell phone in your pocket. Keep it available to where you can get to it. But when you see an animal, I don't care what it is, squirrel, deer, whatever, and you see it out in its natural habitat to where it's scared of humans, it's not one of these like state park deers that'll walk up to the site and eat right around the campsite, you got to be off in the woods, but take your phone out and get a clear picture of a known animal. And, that in itself is hard to do. We all know deer exist, but hey, you need to get a picture that's good enough where we can identify the species. And that's very hard to do because the animals don't hang around long. And that's kind of what we're up against. And when you put it to people like that, they, people that don't believe are never going to believe no matter what you tell them. But, if they'll at least think about it, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And, Sasquatch are not deer. So they're going to be, less. That chance is, also going to have all this, build up because like you said, you're trying to process what you're seeing. And then you got to think about getting your cell phone out and taking a clear picture. It's just, it's pretty tall order.
What exactly do you think the Sasquatch is? Because for every investigator out there, Stacy, we seem to have a real influx of what this creature is. To me, I think it's more or less like kind of the missing link, what we're looking for, along the evolutionary chain. I think that between, you have your great apes and then you have humans, where you kind of have this gap where we just don't match up. I think the Sasquatch would become, it would fill that gap being a more intelligent, the best hunter out of all the primates. And then I think what's happened is we kind of evolved down from them. We don't need the strength because, we're smarter. We can do things that they cannot. And so I think that's where Sasquatch falls along in the evolutionary line. I think they're a biological animal. They can be shot, they can be killed. They're not orbs. They're not ghosts. They're living. They got to eat, got to sleep. They do everything we do. They just, they're just a branch off of that primate tree. I'm not sure what they are. And I know the First Nations up here believe there is something supernatural with this creature. I think it has some sort of cloaking ability. I don't know. I'm not one of these people, these hippie people who believe Sasquatches are people too, and we all know there's that clan of Sasquatch investigators out there as well. But I think we're dealing with a highly intelligent creature in the field, but I'm not sold yet that it is a primate, because 5 days after I had my encounter, up here the First Nations believe that Sasquatch is either interdimensional or some sort of shapeshifter. And we were doing a tour around my friend's house where we saw the Sasquatch in the back forest. And two of the four of us, as we were doing a paranormal walk around their house, because they had a lot of activity on their 10 acres, we were walking along the side, and two of the four of us felt that we were being followed. We turned and looked, and by their old cherry tree, there was, from the ground on up to 8 to 10 feet, this pixelation standing there. And 30 seconds later, all of us got absolutely freaked out due to the roar that came from that area. And ever since then, I really believe there is something more to this creature than what we can actually explain. And I can't be unconvinced of that because of what I experienced. Do you think that with Sasquatch, that we are, we can sit here and say we believe it's, it's a primate or some sort of evolved great ape or something along those lines, but there could be something more to it as well, Stacy?
Well, I mean, ultimately, nobody knows. But the problem I run up with against it being just a smart ape is that I promise you, if in my mind, if it was a smart ape, I know I could have killed it by now. I know somebody would have killed one. I know, we would have it in a zoo at this point, you would think, if it was just an ape and didn't have any kind of powers like that. Now, granted, weird stuff has happened when I've been out, stuff that I can't explain. But until, I guess I'm at that point that until I have nothing else to go on, it being a primate, I've got to lean that way that it's a primate, because once I don't have anything to go on with that, then I'll believe it's something else. So, I mean, we've seen orbs, the stick break, or like the tree knocks. I'm being honest with you, it's something I can't explain, because if you go out and you pick up a limb and you smack it on a tree, it just doesn't make that same sound. When you hear these tree knocks, they're very crisp, and it's hard to think about how they're replicating them and different things like that. And then the fact that the lack of tracks that are left behind, the lack of a body. I mean, I get the reason why people think that there's something, to them, like supernatural, just the elusiveness. But at the same time, I mean, they're a master of their environment. So them being able to hide and, just kind of like disappear. I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that they could just be that good in the woods, that it could seem like that to you. You know what I mean? It could just seem that, well, it was so quiet, it's got to be supernatural. It kind of vanished and didn't make no noise. Well, I mean, it's your mind filling in blanks there that you don't think. So, I mean, I get it. I get the whole paranormal thing, but at this point, I still have to think that it's, some type of primate.
And I don't blame you for that. I really don't. It's just like Jody Cook believes the exact same thing that you are, and him and I were having a telephone conversation just a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that we were discussing is, we can sit here and think that it's a primate all we want, but there are too many investigators, or maybe I should ask you this in the form of a question. Do you think there are too many investigators out there right now who are closing the door on the potential knowledge of this because they don't believe in it personally, rather than, if they're using proper science, let's let science tell whether or not there is something more to this creature than just being a primate? Would you agree with that?
Oh, most definitely. And there also comes up another thing is, would science, tell there's something else to it? But I mean, we got to have a body to figure out all that stuff. It's apparently not going to happen with a sample, like a hair sample or a scat sample. And science is going to be very reluctant. But ultimately, bottom line, if they find the proof that it's got some type of ability like that, they're going to tell everybody they got some ability, because they're going to want that that discovery, you know, they're going to be the people that want to work on that. That's what scientists love to do, some new groundbreaking stuff. So if it's there, they'll definitely tell us that it is.
With the environment that this creature can live in, we've seen it, or we've seen reports in high mountainous areas, we've seen it in forests, we've seen it in the swamps and bayous. Are we dealing with one specific species, or in your research, are there a multitude of species that are carrying on here?
Well, it's kind of hard to say, because like I seen one in California that was absolutely massive, your textbook Sasquatch, and then the ones in Florida, you know, they don't get reported as being that big. But then the one my dad got on thermal was, I think Cliff Barackman said that it was like 8 foot 4 inches by his numbers that he, you know, when he investigated. So that right there may tell that it's all the same creature. But then again, it could be the difference in like a cougar and a Florida panther. Yeah, they're both a puma, but it's just like a subspecies. You know what I mean? They're the same thing pretty much, but except for like weight difference and I guess environment. So I'm not sure what makes something a subspecies, but to me, that's kind of what it is. It's like how you see with the cats. You see the cougars and the panthers. I mean, you look at them, besides the panther just being way smaller, they're the same exact thing. You know, so that may be what we're looking at with, I don't think there's no like huge variances.
Do you find that, and from what I've heard from talking to people, and maybe you can confirm or deny it, do you find that the southern Skunkape or Sasquatch or booger, whatever you want to call them, seem to be a little bit more violent and territorial than the creatures up here?
Well, I think anytime an animal is put in the right position, it's going to do that. You also, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but like on the West Coast, you'll get a lot of, I guess the Bigfoots are nice, you know what I mean? And they're gifting and doing and that. And then down here in the South, you get the Bigfoots are mean, they're attacking. And, you know, that could be it. Or it could be that the people are drastically different. You have a lot more, I guess, progressive types on the that kind of seem like the world's having, maybe hippie types, I guess, on the West Coast, and then down here in the South, you really don't. You know, it's a whole different feel. So maybe that's how the people are just taking it. You know, it's like a reflection on the people themselves. But I mean, I think anytime a person or an animal would be put into a situation where it felt threatened, then yes. I don't think it would matter whether it was on the West Coast or down in the South. I just think a lot of times, and maybe that's the way just that the people that are having the sightings kind of take in this information as to what's happening to them. If that makes any sense.
You mentioned, even though that you believe that this is some sort of ape-like creature, that you have had strange experiences surrounding your encounters. Could you get into those a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, it's a long laundry list of stuff. So we'll start with some of the basic, and then I'll kind of get down in the rabbit hole with it if you want to get down in the rabbit hole. I mean, because it goes pretty deep. So it's like I tell people when they want to talk to me about Bigfoot, it's like, okay, hey, if you really want to talk Bigfoot, I'll tell you some stuff that's happened, and you got to have an open mind, because this stuff is like, it blows my mind. So, you know, at first your equipment will malfunction. You'll be looking at the creature, filming the creature, and something always goes wrong. I know we've probably missed at least a dozen pieces of footage because the camera with the new batteries in it went dead 15 minutes into the trail, you know, or 15 minutes into the walk, and we seen something, and then the camera goes dead, you know. So there's that thing. It's like, do they have some kind of like thing about them? And it's something other researchers, it's the Bigfoot curse, you know, something other researchers have talked about. It's like the equipment will go dead, you know, and then it'll start back up once the Sasquatch leaves. So there's that. There was another time we were on a piece of property, and this is, I guess this is kind of the extreme. We'll start getting into the stuff that sounds weird. And two buddies of mine, we had just left the cabin, and we were out on the hike, and we were standing in kind of a triangle. Okay, me and I guess Dean, I don't know if I should say his real name, but Dean was here with me, and then we were looking at David. Both of us were facing him. David was he was facing back down the hill, and we were looking at David. Well, all of a sudden, David like lights up. It looked like somebody hit him with a spotlight. Me and Dean both seen this. David immediately is like, whoa, I'm looking at something. Well, that's pretty big, right? He's looking at something through the thermal. So I turn around and I get my thermal on it. And meanwhile, I mean, we're still talking about this light that we don't know what it was. And I see it, and David's got it on his thermal, and then my thermal goes dead. David's thermal is maybe 2-3 minutes after mine, it goes dead. He's in the middle of recording it, and it goes dead. And so while you're recording on the certain camera, if you don't stop the recording and it finalizes, it won't save the movie you just recorded, you know, or the file. So that happened, and after the thing was gone, Dean had another thermal that he could just view with. He couldn't record. His never went dead. I mean, he's sitting there looking at the thing, and I walk down the trail to it, and then all of a sudden it's just gone. We don't hear nothing. You know, we don't see nothing. The object is just gone, and then our thermals power back up. Now, I mean, we had just put batteries in these cameras literally maybe about 30 to 45 minutes before. Brand new batteries. These batteries usually, the lithiums in these cameras, they usually give us about 8 hours of constant viewing time before they go dead. So that was an occurrence there. And then there was another one where we were sitting out, and we have some native friends, and they, you know, listen, I've listened to people tell me everything they know about Bigfoot, whether it be the spiritual side or the interdimensional, whatever. And I listen to them because I don't know that I'm right. You know, the book on Bigfoot really ain't wrote yet. So anybody could be right at this point. And we're sitting out there, and we're trying to call a Sasquatch to us. My buddy David, he's talking, kind of just talking to the forest, right? And about 20 yards away, we see this little red light. It's about the size of probably a $50, okay? And it's coming, it's kind of floating along to us, right? And the thing comes up, it comes all the way into the little circle. There's 4 people there with us. And it floats around, and then it kind of floats away. My girlfriend puts up her hand, and it looks like it's going to go into her hand, and then it turns around. Well, then David puts his hand out, and this orb lands right in the middle of it. It just goes out, okay? And we're shining his hand. We're thinking it's a firefly or something. You know, we don't know what it is. And, you know, as it was coming up, he's asking it to bring the Sasquatch with it. Well, then we hear this, like kind of like a growlish grunt thing, you know, from a ways off. And I mean, I say a ways, probably 30 yards, not far to like where the hill dropped down there. And so we're sitting around, and so we start getting the thermals out, and we're looking, and nothing ever happens. So after about 15 minutes, we go to leave. And a buddy, Monroe, that was with us, he said, well, David, are you going to take that orb home with you or what? And right when he says this thing flies up off the orb comes up off the top of David's head, floats around us, and then goes back over to the spot where we were just sitting and disappears again. That was probably one of the craziest things that had ever happened. You know, and we had other instances where we would call in these lights and they would show up, and we would ask the lights to bring the Bigfoots with them, and then the Bigfoots would show up. There was another time when we were sitting on a property, and there's a guy by the name of Ed Brown, and I was telling him this. I was like, hey, listen, there may be something to this. I'm having luck doing this, you know. And this was in the last year. We're sitting there, and Ed's talking to the forest, and he says, if you're here, can you give us some sign? And we hear a whoop. It goes, whoop. And everybody definitely hears it. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, holy cow, did you just hear that? So we go and we sit back in our chairs, and Ed asks them, okay, hey, can you just give me one more thing? Just give me something else. And then right then, a tree falls. And I mean, it was close. It was probably 100 yards away from us. It made a very loud sound, crashed all the way to the ground, and, you know, it fell. And he's like, well, that could have just been a coincidence. It had rained the days prior. We had some guy who was a school teacher with us, and he's sitting there talking about how the rain causes the tree to stop or to drop and stuff. And one last thing, he goes, I'm sorry to ask you again, but can you give me something else? Make another loud noise, you know, or show me something if you're really here. And then right then, a branch broke and fell on the top of the house, which was probably, 300 yards from us, and landed on the house. And yes, it could have been the rain. The wind wasn't blowing. It could have been like the trees being wet from the day before. But all this stuff happened immediately after he asked it to make a noise, you know, it to make something. And the whoop was there. And it's just like we couldn't ignore it. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe that particular piece of land had some kind of energy to it that was doing the stuff. Anytime something like that happens, it ends up raising more questions than it does give you answers. And that's the real frustrating thing. I mean, if you know what I'm talking about.
Listening to your stories, it really makes me wonder if there is something to this, because I know there's very few people, Stacy, who are actually trying to investigate the paranormal aspect that always seems to be surrounding Sasquatch. I mean, whether it's you know, these orbs or batteries running dry. I mean, we hear the same thing around UFO contact. We hear the same thing around, you know, ghostly activity where batteries get drained. I've had batteries drained. So it's something that I find very, very intriguing with absolutely everything. Do you think then, when you're trying to contact Sasquatch, almost on a verbal or telepathic level, which it sounds like you're doing, do you think then that there is some sort of paranormal aspect to what is going on out in the forest and in the wilderness?
I mean, there's so much stuff that we've had happen to us, and I don't buy a lot into what everybody else says. I never have. I want to experience the stuff for myself, and unless it's happened to me, I don't believe it. But there's literally been some paranormal things that have happened once we've opened up to that possibility that could, you know, lend credence to that. But then again, that's why I'm torn, is because we've also had some stuff happen when we've treated it like we were hunting an animal. So it's I mean, for me, it's kind of hit or miss. I mean, because you'll have a Sasquatch encounter and it won't be nothing paranormal about it. Just you're walking through the woods and you see a Sasquatch. But then, like, we went out and tried to talk with these things, communicate, and we have luck. I mean, and our success rate is higher when we treat it like a paranormal case than when we treat it like this is just an ape that we're hunting. So, I mean, I can't say one way or the other. I mean, I can't deny the things that have happened. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, it's intriguing that you treat it like a paranormal case. I mean, I find that's the first time I've had a Sasquatch investigator actually say that on this show in 3 years.
It's a slippery slope when you tell people that stuff, because they'll think you're crazy or whatever. But, I mean, like I told you before, the book's not wrote on Sasquatch. It's not in, and we don't know what we're dealing with. If you're an investigator, you're not a good investigator if you don't investigate every angle. Anybody that's investigating a murder, that's why they question the whole family. You know, they're looking for every aspect. They're questioning all the witnesses and all the suspects. They're going to run all the roads to the dead end until they find the answer at one of them. And I think if you're an investigator and you've got your mind closed to the fact that this could be something else, you're not really investigating. You shouldn't investigate with an opinion. You should never do that. You should never go into something like that with a fixated opinion on, hey, this is what it is, and my mind's closed to the rest of it. Because I promise you, there isn't another investigator, Sasquatch investigator on the planet that knows what's going on. They can think they do. They can tell you they do. I promise you, if any of them was going to know what was going on, it would be shared and everybody else would know it too. But it just doesn't work like that. You have to be open to the possibility of everything.
What do your fellow researchers say about that attitude, though? Because, I mean, there are so many fickle people out in the wilderness who are choosing to use opinion rather than fact as science, that it's really has me scratching my head where a lot of the attitude in this field comes from.
Yeah, I don't get it. You know, it's almost like a rat race to the end. Everybody wants to get the cheese, and I'm not going to lie to you. If somebody else proves Sasquatch is real before me, I'm going to severely be disappointed because I've spent a lot of time and I wanted to be the one that brought this to the mainstream. But I think people, they get in these things of what works for them. And I mean, there's one guy out on the Oregon coast and he'll set a bowl of fruit on the forest floor, and then the fruit's gone in the morning and he thinks it's a Sasquatch. I mean, when I looked at that, I was like, you know, what about a raccoon? What about a squirrel? We really set the bowl on the floor. But in his mind, it was a Sasquatch that took it. And if you rebutted him, he would get angry about that. And that's where it becomes amateurs, I guess. And then, like, scientists don't do that. Scientists, they may go into it with a hypothesis, but they're testing that hypothesis, and if it's wrong, they don't really care. They don't have a vested interest in it, except for the truth. You know, as where you have amateur Bigfooters going out, and it's one way or the other. You know, it's what they say it is, and so I think that's where you lose that level of professionalism, and that's why Bigfooting is just an amateur field thing, because these people have their attitudes and they have their opinions, and none of them are scientists. None of them are professionals. These are guys that are mechanics or, you know, whatever, and they've had a sighting, so now they're researchers, or they are even just fans of finding Bigfoot, and so now they're Bigfoot researchers because they just want to be. And so you get that attitude because you don't have a professional, I guess they're not taught professional, how to act professional, or, you know, they're just not taught that whole science angle of it is like, hey, we need to test every theory that we have and see what it is.
Do you find that the way research is conducted by so many different people and so many people concluding that they are conducting scientific research, that in reality what we're doing is we're shooting ourselves in the foot rather than coming up with some sort of specialized way to investigate that everybody can follow to get the same type of information?
Well, I mean, that's what my group does. Okay. And I don't want to be wrong on this name. And I'm trying to think of it now. So like back September, I want to say it was September 24th, 2016, we had an encounter. We were able to be on the scene within 20 minutes of the encounter. Was able to control the whole scene. We didn't let nobody walk around looking for anything after the encounter. It was like, okay, hey, let's get out of here. We're going to come back at daylight. And then we did, and we were able to look for tracks and found tracks. Well, we had another group, and I want to say it's the North American Wood Ape I don't know, something. I can't pronounce the word, conserver, I don't know, whatever. Well, they had sent us some methods that they had wrote down. It's like, hey, listen, we have these things we do here, and we have good luck with them. I mean, well, our results are pretty good. Maybe you could try them down there. And that's what we do. We always document our methods because one day this is going to become scientific fact. These things do exist, whether they're paranormal or, a physical being. They're there. And one day that's going to be brought out. And when that does happen, then the teams like my group, the Florida Skunkape Project, the Olympic Project out in Washington, they document a lot of the methods and stuff that they use as well. And that's when the scientists will turn to the groups that at least keep a professional, work atmosphere and get some of these methods from these groups, because but the problem is people don't really want to share the information because they're wanting to keep it to themselves because they want to be the first to find it. So we don't have in this whole Bigfooting field, we don't have this open policy of, hey, try this, because you'll either get somebody that's arrogant and be like, oh, no, I got a way it works. I got a way it works better. Or the people won't share it because they want the prize first.
Is that what it is?
And I think,
is that what it is, though, Stacy? Is it ego? Is that why this is the way it is right now out in the field?
Yeah, a lot of it would be ego. There are some people, I can't speak for everybody. There are some people, like Derek Randall's out in the Olympic Project. I talk to him all the time. I can ask him any question. He can do the same to me, and we're very, we just want to see it happen, and then our work all here is not done in vain. But a lot of it is ego. And like I said, it's not professional. And that just kind of drives it down. But then again, another thing is most of these people are, I guess they're kind of weekend warriors. You have a lot of people that never leave the campground for some reason or another. Some people will straight up tell you the truth and tell you they're scared of the dark. They're scared these things are actually out there and they don't want to be. They want to be in the group atmosphere. It's like, I guess it would be like a Boy Scout group. Everybody wants to get up, hang out, camaraderie. We'll share Bigfoot stories around the campfire, and maybe 20 of us will take a walk in a single file line in the dark, and we called it Bigfoot research. And I guess in a way it is. It's not really, in my mind, how it's going to be accomplished. I think some of these people are just scared to be alone in the woods. So like, Survivor Man, Les Stroud. He's one of these people, he's a good friend of mine, and is one of these people that goes out by themselves, for days at a time and does research. And that, you have to get over that wall of being frightened of these creatures, and I think that's what holds it back is the whole amateur I'm scared of the dark. We're kind of just glorified camping or camping with a cause. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not like, do you really, most of these people, the way they're doing it, are you really going to find something like that with 20 people in the woods hollering and banging on trees? Like, are you going to go out and hunt and kill a deer by going and, screaming in the woods? No, you're not. Everything in the forest is going to know you're there and lay down, but it's the way we see it on TV, and it's fun. That's another aspect of it. It's fun because once the lights go out in the woods, all these people, every sound they hear is a Bigfoot. So that, I think that's what's, the biggest problem in 60, 70 years of Bigfoot research is it's not really research. It's more or less just hanging out. You do have a few select groups that are really putting forth the time, putting forth the effort. They're keeping tabs. They got journals, they're documenting all their stuff. They got data, and they're doing it right. But there's not enough of those people. What you have is probably 10% of all Bigfooters doing it the right way. And then you've got 90% that, hey, it's not wrong. I'm not knocking it. Go out and have a good time. Go out and do that. That's cool, but it's like I tell people with the TV shows, you're not going to find a Bigfoot with a cameraman and an audio guy and 2 producers and a PA, and then 3 cast members walking around the woods. It's just you got too many numbers, So either that's the problem. That's 90% of your research, though, is just people camping, getting together. I guess it would be like a UFO meeting where, like, at the Roswell conference, they would go out to this one spot and they'll look to the sky. It's not going to prove nothing, but you're having fun and you're with people that enjoy the same thing as you. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that we don't have enough actual research. We have enough of that, of like gatherings.
We got about 3.5 minutes here before we're going to go to our first break of the night. Stacy, I got a lot of people asking, could you describe the area in North America where you investigate skunk apes and Sasquatch?
Okay, if you look at Florida, the Panhandle region, right up in the north, where it kind of bends around in the state coming up, and then it drops back down and forms a point. The Apalachicola River, it comes down there and then kind of empties out into the Gulf, and along that whole river basin is where I do my research. And I've been all over the country hunting Bigfoot. I've never had so much success as I do there, but that could also be due to the fact that I grew up in these woods. I know what the edibles are. I know what the animals are doing. And then when I go out west, I'm in, uncharted territory for me, so maybe somebody that knows those woods better out there would have good luck. But the Florida Panhandle is where we do our research along the Apalachicola River Basin. That's just me. I have a whole group, and we kind of cover the whole state. We've got people in all of the major hot spots and areas. Excuse me. Doing research in various parts, various forests, and stuff like that.
Is it scary where you are, being in the bayou? I mean, you got the crocodiles, alligators, a bunch of poisonous snakes. I know up here we got to battle cougars, bears, moose, wild horses. It's a different atmosphere, but there's still a lot of danger out there.
I mean, in a lot of ways, up there, everything's huge. You got all those things. Everything's huge, so most chances you can hear it coming. But like down here, we got snakes and spiders, and it's the things you don't see that are the worst. And then the mosquitoes. I mean, I know that y'all may think y'all have mosquitoes out there, or they may think they have mosquitoes in other parts of the country, but y'all ain't got mosquitoes. I've actually seen mosquitoes picked my buddy up and towed him down the road. So, I mean, it's a pretty harsh environment. The heat also down here get to you. You know, you can get dehydrated quick, and but I love it. You know, I mean, we have to deal with the panthers and the bears, but the snakes are the things that worry you the most. And I'm colorblind, so like the copperheads really get blended into them leaves pretty good, you know, for me. So
I am so glad we don't have that big a snake up here. Now, if I headed a couple hours south, then we get into rattlesnake territory, but we don't get the big snakes around here. It's way too cold for them, and I'm very thankful about that.
Well, see, that's another problem. Is like down here in Florida, you can literally run up on anything at any time. We actually just canceled an expedition in Mayaca City because there were 3 Bengal tigers on the loose, and they can't find them. They still haven't found them. And in this environment, it's warm. They're going to do great. You know what I mean? You let a king cobra go, he gets out from the hurricane, destroy the place. Now you got a king cobra crawling through the woods. You can run up on it any time, you know? So it's one of them things where we have a lot of species that don't belong here.
Well, you know what? I'm going to get you to hold on here, Stacy, as we're going to hop out for our first break of the night. Stacy Brown Jr., Sasquatch, skunk ape researcher, alien researcher. We're going to talk about his movie about Roswell in hour number 3. He's down in Florida checking things out. Dangerous, dangerous place down there. You know what, Stace? We're going to say in hour number 2, we're going to convince you to come on up here to British Columbia. Much more safer. No snakes, no man, you know, no Mothman type mosquitoes out there. It's safer here. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Hey, space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every 3rd Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at SpacedOutRadio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at SpacedOutRadio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At SpaceOutRadio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to SpaceOutRadio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from Your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, it is the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. We do it the final Friday of every month. I bring in a bunch of friends. We get together, we have some laughs, and we go over the month that was in the paranormal. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on the Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Ishkabibble. Ishkabibble is our password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Periscope TV. We are live right now on Periscope. Hi, everyone. Good to see you, and thanks for attending us on live television, I guess. Excuse me. We are also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for that. We'd appreciate that. Also, we're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You could do that by going to patreon.com in order to subscribe. We're going to be redoing that very, very soon. We have our GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/spacedoutradio. On our website, you can read up on the encounter online, watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, read up on the encounter, like I said, go to rock out with some Bumblefoot, and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we're talking Sasquatch and Bigfoot for another hour before we're going to get into Roswell with our guest tonight, Stacy Brown Jr. He's an investigator and researcher out of the state of Florida. Stacy, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. Like I said, dude, I appreciate this.
Oh, we're really appreciating it, too. Hey, right before the break, we were talking about, Sasquatch and whether or not, the way people investigate is a little bit different, and we know that. We know it's different. We know that it is something that everybody's going to have their own techniques. Do you think television really played a part in that? Because I know you've done some television on this.
Television definitely played a part in it. With the success of Finding Bigfoot, Matt Moneymaker kind of laid down the way that you should do it. You should go around the woods and holler and bang on trees and stuff. And so we run into the problem, and we actually ran into it last weekend, so we believe, of actually communicating with other researchers, and with everybody doing that. So, more or less we take the approach now of just going out and being quiet and listening, because anytime you do a howl now, you could get a response, but it don't mean it's a Bigfoot. And TV's played a big part in getting the subject matter out to new audiences. And so now you've got a bunch more people looking into Bigfoot than you had before, which is good. It's good for the cause. But there's some drawbacks. Like I said, you have to worry that howl you just heard or those knocks you just recorded are actually from a Bigfoot, or if they're from another researcher, another group of people out there in the woods as well.
Do you think it has been a benefit, television I'm talking about here, to Sasquatch research, or do you think it's made the mainstream really look at us a little bit differently and a little bit more odd because they've never really found anything with every television show that has done a Bigfoot research?
I don't think it's done a disservice. I know a lot of people think that it makes us look bad. The subject makes you look bad. It doesn't. The TV show is not going to do it. Like, you're running around the woods hunting an 8-foot tall man covered in hair. So that in itself is going to, I guess, put the stigma on you already. So the TV show don't really make you look so bad. It just brought it into light that there's people that actually go out there and do this, and they're all kind of weird.
What's your ideas on gifting sites?
Gifting is something that actually happens. I think if you have a place where you got Sasquatch coming through, I don't believe they stay in the same area for long, at least. I think they move. That's why we were having a problem, nailing it down. But I think in areas where, you can communicate with them. I know I've done it before, and I had some success. So, I know it happens. Cats even do it. Cats, if a cat likes you, a cat will bring stuff, dead animals up to you, lizards or snakes or whatever. So it's not something that's out of the realm of possibility by no means.
We actually have a gifting site up here where we have found a couple of prints in the last 2 years. And unfortunately, we cannot get to it right now because of the depth of the snow in the area. But we're very interested in getting back out there. Problem is getting there. You need a snowmobile. Don't have a snowmobile. I know. Canadian dude who doesn't have a snowmobile who lives in the snow, right? But it's one of those things where we're stuck right now in getting any type of investigation going. So we're probably 2 to 3 months away. We've left everything out there. We found an area where at about 10, 11 feet tall on this tree, the bark has been pulled off of this tree, and there's no signs of bears, no signs of porcupines, no signs of, woodpecker knocks or anything along those lines. It's just very, very strange because where we set this up, where this tree is, there's a bunch of trees all leaning into this one, almost like a lean-to had been built. So that's where we decided to set it up. Right by where we found prints. And my buddy Mark, who is listening tonight, he has been in the forest of this area. There's not a road that he doesn't know. He has been hunting and guiding this area for 20 plus years. And this is a guy who is so in tune with the outdoors that when we first started going out to this place and I wanted to show him where this print was that we originally found, seriously, it was still there a year later. He was actually showing me, prints that I was stepping over, like wild horse prints, moose prints, and it was just absolutely awesome to get that type of knowledge from him, and I absolutely love the guy for it. And we've become very good friends because of it. And, one time we were out at the gifting site, and not much had moved that day, and we were just kind of around. But when you just get that feeling, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how to describe it besides that feeling. And we were out there, and we were standing by where the print was, and this was... Let me rewind for a second here. I'm jumping. I'm so excited to tell. I love telling this story, and sometimes I get a little bit too excited. But when I first showed Mark that footprint, he got down on one knee and was investigating it, and all he could say for about 15 minutes was, "What the hell is this? What the hell is this?" And I'm laughing. And he's like, "No, seriously, Dave, what the hell is this?" I said, "That's a big footprint." He goes, "I know." He goes, "I've just been in the forest for 30 plus years, and I've never seen anything like this." I said, "Well, were you looking for it?" He goes, "Well, obviously not." Right? So when we went back a couple times after to check out that print, when we set up the gifting site and everything, we were kind of standing around there, and probably, I'm going to say 60, 70 yards to the left of us, there was a couple of very heavy footprints, and we go in armed. I don't have a hunting license, I don't own a gun, but Mark does. So we go in armed, but we want to make sure, I'm very spiritual and superstitious. We want to make sure that we have, that we let them know that the gun is not for them. It's just not for them. Yeah. And whether they understand that or not, we can only hope and surmise. And so we heard the footsteps. Mark very loudly cocked his gun, and then there were no more. And when you had mentioned how you had said, "Hey, could you give us a sign that you're out here?" When your eyes in the forest just keep leading you to watch one area. So I'm watching to the right of us. Mark's watching to the left. I'm watching to the right. I can't keep my eyes off this area. I'm like, "Dude, I know you're there. I absolutely know you're there." And then I kind of said, come on, give me a sign. And within 10, 20 seconds of me saying, give me a sign, nature's alarm went off, where right where I was looking in the area where I thought it was, a squirrel starts chirping away that something is down there. It was just absolutely awesome. Mark looks at me and goes, well, there's your sign, nature's alarm, you know. So it was a good moment. Yep. We haven't seen it yet. We haven't made any contact. We're not even sure the movement that we have had at our gifting site yet has been Sasquatch, because we don't have any cameras up there as of yet. But it is something that we are monitoring, and we just got to wait for the snow to melt now.
Well, if you're getting, and you believe that you're having encounters, what you need to do, and just my suggestion, okay, you think that you're having, they're leaving the gifts. Put you out some coins, okay, and make sure that it's different ones. Like what I do is I have a dime representing myself, okay. It's smaller, it's a different color. And then I have 5 pennies that I put out at the place where I do this at. And I always put them on the same place. And see, at first, I would come out and there would be like 1 or 2 gone, and then I always use different years on the pennies so I keep track of this. I take a picture of how they're setting and all that. And then I'll put 2 more pennies or 3 more, however many are gone, always replace them with new pennies, and then there'll be a different amount of pennies gone. A dime's still there, but there'll be another amount of pennies gone. And this goes on, for probably 8 months. I was doing this. And then I noticed that the original pennies were there. You know what I mean? The ones I used the first few times that were just gone, is because I'd come out, my dime would be there, and there'd be 3 pennies. So I put 2 more pennies back, and the next time there'd only be 1 penny, and then I fill it back up. And then I started noticing that they were taking these things and keeping them somewhere because they brought them back. You know what I mean? There were still 2 pennies, but it's like they brought the earlier ones back. So just something to try, Lester out actually, he told me he was doing the same thing with marbles, so then I started trying it myself, and it kind of will let that this whole, they're intelligent, and this whole gifting thing can be, I guess kind of cool, kind of a process, but they're communicating with you. And I think what they were telling me was, when you were here last, there was 2 of us here, and there was 1 of you, or there was 3 of us, and there was 1 of you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of weird, but it's something you can try.
Definitely going to try that out. We have on the ground, when you go to the dollar store, you get those glass. They're not marbles, but they're like glass that's rounded. That you put. A lot of people put them at the bottom of a vase, and they put their flowers and water in there. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. We put those on the ground, and with those we have had the most movement. And we kind of pushed them into the ground a little bit so they were indented. Now, obviously, because we don't have cameras out there, it could be anything from mice to rabbits to porcupines to deer to anything. You know what I'm saying? But one of the interesting times that we had with that is if you have a set of dice, the number 5, you got all 4 corners punched, and then you got the middle. Well, we made a design of one of those. And when we brought up Mark on his camera brought up the old photo from when we set it up, or set the scene up, 2 of them, which were about 2 inches apart, had moved 4 inches away, and they were still 2 inches apart.
Wow.
and that one was a little strange. We've had others move in there, but we have bright-colored Hot Wheels cars out there that really haven't moved. We have a couple of Slinkies that haven't moved. Right before the last time we were able to get in there, I actually put up some shiny Christmas decorations, just hanging them on the trees just to see what happens. Now, if they're on the ground, it could be anything. It could be from snowfall from above on the trees or whatever. But if they've been moved, that's where it's going to get interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, what I did is I just built me a little table out in the woods. That's where the stuff was. It was up off the ground, and I could rule out. With it being the pennies, they're really small, and flat. So I can kind of rule out some things. But, it's all about making contact. And I think that's what's going to end up doing it, is somebody's going to make contact with these things. And, then getting the DNA, getting the good pictures, getting these things to come out in the open, because you form some type of trust. I guess it would be back to that whole Jane Goodall type thing. I think that's what's going to end up actually getting it done.
Well, one of the things that we got to watch out for in our area is there are so many damn animals in that area. We have grizzly bears in that area. We have cougars. We have lynx, bobcats, moose, let alone the deer. There's giant packs of wolves in there, coyotes, foxes. I mean, we got absolutely everything in that area. And so it is dangerous. So, leaving snacks out or anything along those lines, it would just, it would not be good. I know we got growled at there right before I brought Mark there. My friend Corey and I, we got growled in there by something big, and it was only about 40, 50 feet away from us. We didn't see it, sounded like a bear, and we got the hell out of there as quick as possible. So, I mean, there's a lot of dangerous elements on things that, would like to rip you apart or eat you in that area. Yeah. So, we have to be careful with what we're bringing up there, but I do think that this is an area that we need to investigate a little bit more, and hopefully if they are the ones making the glass rocks move on the ground, maybe they're going to come back and just see what's happening. Maybe they're just as curious as we are. Do you think that could be possible?
Oh yeah, because how often is it that these things come across humans? And I mean, they're intelligent enough to, maybe it's some type of game to them or something like that. But, yeah, most definitely I think their curiosity of humans in general. Like, we got a report the other day of a Sasquatch wearing and that's why we're hunting this area. It was a Sasquatch, and he was wearing a flannel shirt.
What?
We called it grunge squatch.
You got to be kidding me.
But, no, I'm serious. And I mean, the guy looked like, he was telling the truth, and I can't take it out of the realm of possibility that maybe they've watched people put shirts on before and just happened to see a shirt laying around and put the thing on. It is. Chimps are smart enough to do stuff like this, so why wouldn't we think something else is? Now, normally you would think the guy was insane, but I think he honestly believed it. Whether he was telling the truth or not, I don't know, but I think he really believed what he was telling me. So, as crazy as it sounds.
Well, I mean, it is intriguing. I mean, I know a good friend of mine, Derek Whiteskycloud, who's been a guest on this show. He's First Nations up here in Canada, and his brother-in-law swears by the story where, he was working on a new power line project or something along those lines, or logging, or in an area up near Seashelt here in British Columbia along the coastline. And he was sitting in his truck for lunch, and all of a sudden, you always kind of glance at your mirrors, and everything was black in his rearview mirror. and when he turned to look, there was nothing there. And so he continued to go to bite his sandwich, and he looked out his driver's side door mirror, and the window was open. He looks out the driver's side door mirror, and he sees this black thing standing there, and all of a sudden he sees this hand reach into the cab, grab his sandwich, and then walk off down the gravel road eating his sandwich.
Wow.
You know, could you imagine having that type of happenstance? I mean, that's where it gets real. You know what I'm saying? That's where it gets real.
Oh yeah. Yep. And it's, I mean, there's an occasion, this is kind of the same thing. This girl down in Ocala, she had her door open and she was inside cooking a ham. It was just like a typical fall evening, and she got the ham out of the oven and turned around, and there was a Sasquatch standing right there behind her. It grabbed the ham from her, and you know, the ham was hot, obviously, so it burned it, and the Sasquatch was like juggling it and running out of the house screaming. And I mean, the cops and everything were there investigating the area, investigating this. It actually, you know, it went on, and that's who had told me about it, was a police officer. So, you know, I don't think if they see us, monkey see, monkey do, you know, and being hungry may feed into that a little bit more. So.
Yeah, I could see that. Let's get into the Skunkape for a little bit here, because we know so much about Sasquatch, especially in this area, but we haven't really delved into the legend of the Skunkape. What defines its differences between the Sasquatch that everybody sees from the Patterson-Gimlin film?
Well, mostly is a mangy look, you know, exasperated from you know, just the heat. Usually you get a smaller report, you know, which makes sense because the closer you get to the equator, the animals get smaller. It's also hotter temperatures. So, and then there's just this smell, this horrid kind of egg smell that most people encounter when they have these incidents. And I think that's your main differences in the Skunkape and the Sasquatch, you know. There being so much undergrowth here in the forest, which when I went out west for the first time, the forests, for the most part, don't have a lot of growth on the floor. But down here, there's just all kinds of stuff like snag your hair, tangle it up, and make you kind of look just mangy, and then the heat too. So I think with the differences in the reports, I guess you don't have such a pretty coat. And I think maybe that's where you get more of the scary encounters, like, oh, it was attacking me. It may not have been attacking you. You just, you know, seen this ugly big monster, and you kind of blacked out and filled in the blanks. You know, your mind just like filled in gaps where you just couldn't take what you were seeing.
So if they're smaller, what size creature are we talking about here if we, you know, use a mindset that the West Coast Sasquatch or the more northern Sasquatch is usually cited to be between 7 and 12 feet tall?
Well, you're looking down here. I mean, we have a bunch of sightings of littler ones, like 3 to 4 feet. Matter of fact, there's a place called Two Egg, and they have, the locals call it the stump jumper. And it's a very small, like Ewok type Sasquatch. Numbers of people have seen this thing. It's kind of like a local legend. And, but mostly it's like 6 to 7 feet. You know, you get in that area, you know, with the long arms and stuff. And it's this kind of, I guess if you look at the cover of the Boggy Creek, you know, the legend of Boggy Creek, that creature right there, that's what we mainly get reported, just like this thin, you know, lanky, 6 to 7 foot, nasty, stinking looking creature.
Is it more aggressive than what we have heard of the creature up here?
I would think most of the reports would lead you to believe that. For whatever reason, it just seems that these are more territorial. Maybe that's because there's not a lot of numbers of these things down here, and I mean there's millions of acres of wilderness in Florida. It's just that I don't think we have as many in our state as there is in the Pacific Northwest, in that whole area. I think you got a large amount of population down or up there, and then down here you don't have as much. But Florida, has just about enough sightings as everywhere else.
What kind of people are seeing this? Are there hunters? Are they outdoors people, or are they just regular people who just happen to have property line along the bayou or the forests?
Well, that's the thing about it. Everybody. I mean, all kinds of people. We have children, and I mean, there's a new film I'm making. The Skunkape Lives. We're interviewing a biologist. She actually had a sighting. So you've got police officers we've talked to, just every day. The guy I interviewed the other night, just an everyday redneck, likes to go out and hunt. And it's not, I heard another thing that somebody said, well, you don't never have no black people see Bigfoot. Always these crazy white people. Well, I mean, that's not true. I mean, I've got a number of reports of all kinds of races of people. So it's not really like we can pin it down to one type of person that's seeing it. I mean, you've got everybody. All different walks of people are seeing this creature. And I think that, is good. Yeah, I think that's good, for the weight of the reports.
A lot of times, David Paulides believes that a lot of the stories from his missing 411 cases is where people have seen, children especially being carried off by big hairy creatures on 2 feet, and maybe the children are found dead, or they're found alive, or just never seen again, whatever it may be. Do you think that Sasquatch goes hunting for people, or even the Skunkape?
Not necessarily, but then again, how hungry are you? How hungry is that thing? With the type of diet, you have to figure, with it weighing that much, it's got to have a diet like a bear. So it's got to eat everything. And being an opportunistic hunter, if you see a small kid by itself, I mean, you'd be like a big cat at that point. You're going to take it. So I guess put in the right situation, that could most definitely happen. And even some of the Seminole Indian stories, early stories of the Skunkape, have them taking women and children, So it's something that I think could very well happen. Like I said, if it was the right situation.
Well, up here, the legend is, around the Harrison River and the Chehalis First Nation, the law of the land was for females not to go out after dusk, because Sasquatch would be looking for wives.
Right? Who ain't? That's what I do. I go out after dusk, and I'm looking for women too.
Well, so, I realize that's natural cause, but for them, there was a couple of famous cases in this area of women, especially in the early 1900s, being taken and, being found months later, not even remembering their own dialect, talking a different language, as they had been taken as Sasquatch wives.
Well, there is also the Albert Osman story, where he was kidnapped, and they tried to make him mate with one of the younger Bigfoot. So, these old reports, they got, to me, they mean the most. These new reports, you got too much stuff that could cloud the reason as to why they're telling you this. Most of the people I talk to nowadays, they always want to know, hey, how's Bobo? Or, you know, they think you're going to show up with some camera crew and make them famous, give them their 15 minutes, their flash in the pan. And so you have to think, are they lying because they think they're going to get on TV? But back then, that wasn't the case. There was no TV. You know, these people told these stories because it actually happened, and they had to tell somebody. You know, and so those old stories like the Albert Osman story and the one down here right by, I mean, it's maybe 20 miles from where my dad got his footage, the Ocheezy Wildman capture. You know, those old incidents actually happened because there was no reason to lie about it back in the day.
When you are trying to communicate with this creature, whether it's a Skunkape or the Sasquatch, do you have any rituals or anything that you do specifically that has produced results?
What I like to do is a thing I call becoming Bigfoot. All right. I'll go out for a week or so. I take a few days worth of food, not much. And it's rationed from the second I step out the car. Because my goal is I'm still hunting this, researching into this mainly with the thought that it's a primate. Okay. So I'm going to where the food is. What makes the most sense? Where's the food going to be? Okay. If I can't feed myself while I'm in the woods for a day, you know, with primitive means, if I can't feed myself, then how is a Sasquatch or a Skunkape supposed to feed itself? Now, you figure a creature that's going to weigh 400 pounds has got to put some food down every single day. And, you know, if I go 3 days, I won't have no encounters. But the second I find the food, that first day where I really feed myself and I'm like, man, I feel good. I can get up. I can do some things I needed to do, you know, around here, gather up some wood, get ready for tonight. That's when I have my activity, is when I'm around wherever the food source is. But that's also where all the animals in the forest will be. That's where your hogs are going to be at, you know, and your deer and things like that. It's going to be wherever the edibles are at. It's where our black bears are at. So that's 9 times out of 10 where the Sasquatch are at too.
Have you ever heard of or witnessed yourself any signs of fighting between Sasquatch and other animals?
You know, we thought we had before. A technique we like to try now is, if it's still an ape, one of our theories is that there's going to be these rogue males, okay? I guess you'd think of it as a pecking order. I'd say there's a family of 3, mother, a father, and a boy, a male. When that male comes of age, he's going to want to breed, just instinct, right? So obviously he's not going to be able to breed with his mother because his father wouldn't let him. Or, you know, maybe they would have to do some battle there. But most likely there would be some rogue Sasquatch out searching for a new female. And then maybe you would have interaction. So what we try to do is grunts and like aggressive calls to try to lure out a male and maybe challenge, you know, thinking that it was another Sasquatch, that it would come out and challenge the other Sasquatch, and not knowing that it's us. And, you know, what do we do when we've got a pissed off Bigfoot 20 feet from us looking at us and growling? We haven't figured that part out yet because it hasn't happened. But when it happens, I'll let you know.
We celebrated last fall the 50th anniversary of the Patterson-Gimlin film, and not since the Zapruder film has there ever been a film that has been debunked, rebelieved more than the Patterson-Gimlin film. What's your take on that 50 years later?
You know, I got the chance to meet Bob and hang out with him for a day, and he tells the story well. You know, there's a lot of things you have to think about when you're thinking about the Patterson-Gimlin film. Just from a, I guess, just if you step back and take a look at it, and you're looking at everything, you have to think that, well, Roger Patterson wrote a bad check for a camera to go film a Bigfoot documentary. Well, on his first attempt, he got the footage, the best footage to date. People talk about the creature itself with the muscle movement and stuff, and the film is so old. There's so many artifacts into it, you know, and you can't really tell. That could have been a costume. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I think there are Bigfoots there. I've actually Bigfooted at that site and had some luck, found a huge trackway. But you have a lot of red flags around that footage, you know, with the guy who said he was in the costume, from the costume maker saying that he was making Roger Patterson a costume for a movie. So, I mean, it looks good. It looks good, and I used to not believe it until my father got his footage, and it was just so strikingly similar. I know my father's footage is real. I was there for that. And so, you know, it looks kind of the same. So maybe it is real. I wasn't there. I think it's a very iconic piece of footage. It got the whole movement into what it is today. Very important. If it was to ever be debunked, like permanently, I guess if anybody ever admitted it was a hoax, it would destroy a lot of Bigfooting. You know, it would kind of go up in flames. You know, that's really the holy grail piece of evidence that we got. You know, if that was to become a loss, then you know it would do major damage.
Do you think that holy grail of information or video is out there right now, but because of the way this field is, with the harassment, with the public and the skeptics out there especially, who will try and rip it apart, do you think that maybe someone is holding on to that critical piece of evidence but just will not release it because they don't want the harassment?
I honestly think there are so many game cam photos. You know, I think there's so many pieces of evidence that people just don't come forward with for whatever reason. I think it's out there. I think proof is out there, and it's just getting the people to come forward with it. There is one piece of footage that I've watched that I think is 100% legit. No doubt in my mind. There's these kids, and they're with their father, and they're out shooting a gun, and I believe they're in Idaho. And as they're firing the gun, you see something move maybe 300 yards away from like opening to opening. And it's a Sasquatch. And then you see this helicopter coming in, like it's chasing the thing, and the people don't even notice it. They're just shooting their gun, you know, and there's this thing way off in the distance. Like if you were going to pull a hoax, you would definitely do it closer to the camera, you know, and I don't know how you would get the helicopter in there, but it looked like the helicopter was chasing the Sasquatch, which brings up another question of, was it a government helicopter? I mean, like, obviously whoever was in the helicopter knew that thing was down there. And so if you get a chance, go and look that up on YouTube. I think you just got to tap in, like, kids at shooting range film Bigfoot. They don't even know that it's in the footage for, like, I think 2 years before they realize what they got.
Speaking
and
of...
I think that's it. I think so.
Speaking of footage, recently Todd Standing has been making a lot of headwaves in regards to his latest research with the recently deceased John Bindernagel and Jeff Meldrum, who were working to get on this show. and just waiting for a response back from him on that. What do you think of Todd Standing's research? Or first, have you even seen the documentary?
I have seen the documentary. Todd Standing himself, you know, to me, they're all fake, because the first one's definitely a fake. My buddy Les, I keep dropping his name, but he's good friends with Todd, and he believes Todd's having, you know, Bigfoot activity out there. So that kind of throws me off. But if you're looking at his first piece of film, it appears to have like marble eyes, like what a taxidermist would use. The creature also does not blink. And that was the main complaint about it. The creature never blinks, you know. So then Todd has this other piece of footage come out, and it's a completely different looking Sasquatch. Like, it would look like it would even be a different species there. And it makes sure it blinks. You know, I mean, like when you're watching that footage, it actually makes sure that it blinks. It looks like it purposely blinks so you can see it. It also kind of looks like him. I mean, if you look at it, there's some computer-generated images that people have done that kind of transform from that into Todd's face. Now, the last piece of footage he has, it looks great. The face, I guess it's under a log or something, and it's looking at him. It's the black face one. It looks really good. It also looks like a gorilla, kind of, but I mean, it looks really good. But to me, with that first one having the marble eyes and it not blinking, it just kind of killed it for the rest of it. You know what I mean? To me. But, you know, hey, maybe they are real. I don't know. I can't tell you. But just my personal thoughts, that's what I was thinking on that. Maybe he's having Sasquatch activity, and he's making these pieces of evidence up to get money to research. I can't tell you, but I don't believe it's real at all.
There's two pieces to that film that kind of startle me a little bit. The first one was where, and it's not so much the Sasquatch that he had shot or videotaped or photographed before, but the first one happens to be when he gets together with Bindernagel and Jeff Meldrum, mostly Meldrum at that point. He seems like he's trying to have to convince Dr. Meldrum to see what Todd wants him to see. That I find a little bit disturbing. He did the same thing with Dr. Bindernagel, too.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way Todd is, I think. And if you look at how that whole movie's shot, it's almost just like a sizzle or like a trailer with a bunch of action shots. Like, you see these pictures of him, like the camera's set up in some spot, and then he runs by it. It's like kind of odd. It's like, what did you even put that in there for? You know? And then there's shots of him all the time driving this ATV. But one of the things about that movie that kind of killed it for me as well was he's rolling down this hill, and apparently a Sasquatch has come after him. He's rolling down the hill, and then he stops because he's hiding. But the camera's already set up to where he rolls right into frame. You know what I mean? So it's like, how did you plan all that? It's just like I said, there's a lot of things to that movie that you just don't sit well with me.
It was a little, you know, and I don't want to sound like we're bashing it here, but a couple of the other parts were, I thought it was a little too coincidental that he would be in the shot where the apples were lying on the log, and you see what looks to be a hand grab the apples. I thought, you know, if you're a cameraman and you've been doing this as long as Todd has, you know where your cameras are at all times. And you know whether or not you're going to be in the shot. And I just found that a little too coincidental. But the one thing that did bother me about it was he made one comment, and this was the one that really kind of made me shake my head was he was talking to Jeff Meldrum about it and said, we're not even in my good Sasquatch area. I'm saving that to bring you there at another time. When you have two doctors coming on board in Dr. Bindernagel, God rest his soul for just passing, a couple weeks ago, and Jeff Meldrum, who don't have a lot of time, obviously for Bindernagel, and that's no pun intended, you don't waste their times by taking them to a secondary place when you could have set it up to take them to the place where you're really supposedly getting the action. That doesn't make sense to me. That's like me saying
to kind of a slap in the face.
That's like me saying to you, hey, why don't you come up here? I'm going to take you on the ghost tour that I do that's really haunted at my museum, but we're going to go someplace else instead because the next time you come up, I'm going to take you to that museum where it's really haunted.
Yeah, it's kind of childish to me. Yeah, and the way the whole film was shot, it was almost like it was a child made it. I don't know. I don't mean to bash him. It's just like I don't believe none of it. And there were so many things like that. And then like when he's trying to show him the track, oh look, that's a track. If I press my foot right here on the right side of it, it doesn't even go in nowhere near as deep. And it's well, okay. Hey, press your foot in on the left side of it right there where it looks like it's super soft. It kind of seemed like he was trying to push people in that and push Meldrum into these, conclusions. And I don't know, Meldrum went along with it for some reason. It didn't look real to me. You know what I mean? It looked like he was trying to force Meldrum into thinking a certain way.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable for me, to be honest. And I don't know Jeff Meldrum. I had only met Dr. Bindernagel once, and that was in 2015 at a conference in Vancouver. And it was actually really cool because I'd never met the man before. And I mean, we're talking about the Wayne Gretzky or the Gordie Howe of, Sasquatch investigation and research here. And all of a sudden I kind of walked into him and he says, and he looks at my name tag on my lanyard and he's like, I need to talk to you. And I said, me? And I kind of looked dumbfounded, like me? I'm looking over my shoulders. Who else? He goes, I heard you just saw a couple Sasquatch 2 years ago. I need to hear this story. I want to hear all about it. So literally, I don't even know this man. I said, I didn't even want to look him in the eye, because he's just that powerful of a man to me. I'm glad I got the opportunity to meet him. Unfortunately, due to his health, we could never seem to get him on this show. But, to be able to shake the man's hand and say, and tell him my Sasquatch story, and him and his wife stood there in just totally intrigued the entire time, and to be able to answer those questions, it was a phenomenal experience I'll never ever forget. And you look at in that meeting with him, I saw how genuine he was, and I really felt bad for him because of that video. Like, you could tell that Meldrum and Bindernagel really didn't look comfortable.
No, they didn't. And I watched it, and it's got a huge response. Like, people seem to love it. I don't get it. I don't get it. So, but that's the way it is, man. Some people see things a certain way, I guess. Everybody's got opinions, right?
We only got about 2.5 minutes left that until we go to our final break of the night here with you, Stacy, and I'm really enjoying this chat with you. Thank you so much for going the distance. I do want to ask you quickly about this, and I know it's going to be a quick answer, but if you want to carry it on over after the break, we sure can before we get into talking about your movie about the 70th anniversary of Roswell. But when it comes to Sasquatch and cameras, I don't believe for a second that everybody is a bad photographer or a bad videographer. Why do you think all of these videos come out blurry or these pictures come out blurry?
I don't know. I don't. I don't have a thing for that. Obviously, can't everybody be a bad videographer. But maybe there's something with the cameras, or maybe they can do something to the cameras. I know I'm not a bad videographer. I just haven't had my chance to see one in the daylight with anything but a thermal, which will change now. So I'm hoping one day that I'll get that chance. I'm a pretty good videographer, so if I ever, hopefully I can get a crystal clear picture. But, if you do get a crystal clear picture, everybody's going to call it fake anyways. That's just the way the field is, like I said before. Most of the Bigfooters are just shooting other people down. So what would be the point of sharing it?
Well, and that's why I'd asked you earlier if you thought, that golden piece of evidence was out there and just not being shown because people don't want the harassment.
Right. And I very much believe that somebody's sitting out there on a good piece of game camera footage, or maybe even a body, and they just don't say nothing because they don't want the whole circus that comes with it.
I agree. It is a circus indeed. Hey, where can people find your adventures and your Bigfoot information? Let's fill in our audience on that.
Yeah. You can look up FloridaSkunkapeProject.org. And we are a nonprofit group. We do expeditions. They're free, so you're more than welcome to come out. You can also check us out on Facebook, the Florida Skunkape Project. I'm on Twitter at Bigfoot Stacy, and you can follow me on Facebook, Stacy Brown Jr., where I post all my Bigfoot adventures, and follow us on YouTube at Apalachicola Skunkape Project.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be with us for one more hour here. I'm going to get you to hold on, Stacy, because we're switching gears. We're going from Bigfoot and Skunkape to UFOs, aliens, and Roswell. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. Our guest tonight, Stacy Brown Jr. I highly suggest you check out his information. We also got the Thought of the Dave coming up in the second half hour of hour number 3 as well. We'll be back with more SOR right after this.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you are seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we have the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. I'm going to bring in some friends. We're going to discuss the month that was in the paranormal, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to give a shout-out to one of our brand-new listeners, Aaron Rothman, for tuning us in for the first time tonight, checking out. He's apparently liked a lot of paranormal radio. He's checking us out for the first time. Thank you, Michael, for introducing Aaron to our show. We love bringing in the new listeners and saying hello to you. Much appreciate your time and giving us an opportunity. Aaron, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on the Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listeners. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Ishkabibble. Ishkabibble is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are live on Periscope every single night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. Make sure you give us a follow on that. We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. You could use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to connect live with us during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would highly appreciate that. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including you can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or you can also watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Don't forget about our Patreon account. It's patreon.com/Spaced Out Radio. We are in the process of moving our SOR Space Travelers Club over to Patreon. We would appreciate that for as low as $1 a month. You can become a patron and a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tonight, for the final time, I introduce our guest, Stacy Brown Jr. He is a Sasquatch and Skunkape investigator. And now, we're going to get into another passion of his, which is Roswell. Stacy, welcome back.
Yeah. Roswell thing, has been something my dad kind of was really into when I was a kid, so I've always been interested in that as well.
When did you have your first real UFO encounter, or have you ever had one?
Never actually had one. I wish I had. I think it could be cool. I would think, hopefully they wouldn't take me and put me in a zoo on another planet, but watching the Travis Walton, the Fire in the Sky when I was a kid always terrified me of aliens. But I think it would be cool to see one, but I never have. But just that possibility of the chance, because I definitely don't think we're alone in the universe. So it could definitely happen, at least in my mind. I just, I don't know how I would take it. I'd probably be terrified.
Oh, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. You just go with the flow, man. Go with the flow.
I guess so.
Maybe
the flow would mean soiling myself.
Oh, who hasn't? Who hasn't been taken around here? Come on.
Right.
It's time for you to end your happily boring life, my friend. Go for a ride.
Right?
No, I understand that. And, I'm saying that in jest, my friend, because, I am an experiencer. I have been taken. I have had contact and seen more UFOs than I can count. And it's an intriguing subject to me. And let's face it, the catalyst to all of it, even though, we've seen reports even before that. The real catalyst is the Roswell incident back in 1947. What led you to finding the intrigue surrounding Roswell?
Like I said, my dad having me were watching shows with me when I was a kid, and that's kind of like the Patterson-Gimlin film of UFO or ufology, is that Roswell incident. That's the kind of the one thing, that started all of it. And just that, I guess, that aura of the whole situation, that whole feel around that topic was just something that I wanted to not only immerse myself in for a little bit, but also make a film about it and capture that and try to, put it out there to the public.
When you started finding research, on it, were you able to find anything different that hadn't been talked about in the past?
Well, yeah, just different theories, because a lot of the stuff you read, a lot of the programs you watch want you to either really push in the government covered up something, or that it was aliens. Most of the programs you watch will push you towards aliens. And what I did with that was like I do with the Bigfooting. I didn't go into it with any preconceived notions. I read all the stuff, all the material that I could find on the subject, and came up with my own theory. The whole Unit 731 thing is something a lot of people don't talk about. But you had this Japanese group of scientists called Unit 731 that were doing all these chemical and biological weapons testing back in World War II. Now, they were doing them on people that they captured, Soviet troops, Mongolians that they had got, Chinese people, and even their own people, and testing all this stuff. Well, after the war ended, it was kind of a race to get these people because, we snatched up German scientists, everyone that we could, and we brought them over to Albuquerque. And then with the Unit 731, the ones the Soviets got a hold of, they put to death, rightfully so. These people, committed atrocious acts on humans during the war. So they deserved it, but we kind of grabbed them and like, hey, we want you to continue your work over here. And they brought them over to White Sands. And I think maybe what I came to the conclusion with that is that, yes, something did crash, but it was all at the same time that Unit 731 came on. And you also had the part where all these people in Lincoln County got ill. There's no information on that. That after the crash, a good number of people actually got sick in Lincoln County, and the government tried to come in and prove that it was cholera, but they just couldn't do it. The stuff wasn't there. I guess they figured if they tested the water and stuff around there enough that's what they could push it off as. But they just never could, and then it kind of just got forgot about, But I think when you add that the scientists from Unit 731 come over, and then you have the Lincoln County illnesses right after the crash, maybe what crashed out there was a government plane. Maybe it was a new ship. But I think what happened is that there were biological agents on that may have gotten put into the air and affected the people in the surrounding area. That was kind of something new that I had never seen on any programs, and not very much I could read about it. I had to talk to people in the town who were there back, or had relatives that would tell them about these things, that they knew the info, and the problem is it's 70 years later, so there's not much, but in my mind when we went to make the movie, there was somebody in Roswell that I was going to meet that still had a piece of the wreckage, because I know they didn't give it all, to the government. The government didn't get it all because the people were coming out there from the town and taking it before they could quarantine the area off. And so, something crashed. What crashed, we may never know.
Did you look into the tie-in in regards to the lesser-known San Agustin crash, which a lot of people believe that the vehicle at San Agustin had collided with the UFO that eventually landed in Corona?
No, we didn't really get into that. We did talk to a lady who has a website. I can't actually remember what the website is right now, but anyway, she had told us about all these crashes that had happened around in the same time, right around in the area. So maybe that was one of them, but when we got shown, we got like 9 of them she was talking to us about. And, that was pretty cool, some of that stuff, that there was different crash sites. I know that the museum, the crash site that they give you is not the actual crash site. We had to find that on our own. And when we did, there's a monument and stuff there that lets you know that's where you're at. But one of the other crash sites that we went to, the museum sent us to, it wasn't that one. So maybe it would have been this one you were talking about.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is we've had Gerald Anderson on this program, who was literally 5 years old when he and his father and his cousin and brother were out looking for agates, and they came across the crash site, and there were aliens, 2 dead aliens on the ground, one that was wounded and one that had survived. And within 30 minutes of that, the government vehicles and the military vehicles were there, and they were, chasing things down. And the speculation, even from, Stanton Friedman and other investigators into that, was that there was some sort of collision that brought both down. And do you buy into the theory that the reason why New Mexico had so many crashes of alleged UFO craft was because of the highly intensive radar system that was going on in the sky at that time, because that's where they were testing and building nuclear weapons?
Yeah, it could have, but you have to think at the same time that these UFOs are coming from way off in space. I don't know that would actually affect them. Maybe it was something that they had never came across, and it did something to their ships that caused the crashes. There was a really bad thunderstorm when all that went down, so maybe there's just this type of, this type of perfect storm that kind of made them crash. But in one aspect, if you're thinking about it, these things came from light years away, or at least so we're thinking. The radar shouldn't have really bothered them. But yeah, I've heard that, and it's pretty interesting theory, people put together there.
So take us through the film. Take us through everything that you did with this. Because I think our audience, as we get them to move over to Amazon to get the whole feel for this, I think that getting them some information would be great.
Well, if you watch most of the Roswell shows, films, it's really more or less just about the crash. Okay. And, we had this anniversary of 70 years later to where we could do something else. Chances are you're not going to come across any new evidence after 70 years, but you may have some new theories. And that's what we were able to launch in this, was the new theories that, myself, Nick Redfern, Phil Brock, and some of the speakers in the film actually had. Also, we covered a topic that's just not in there, and that's how the movie starts off, is what happened to Roswell? You know, how did this affect Roswell? How has it changed its economy? You know, because if you go to downtown Roswell, it's very much a UFO city. You know, even the local baseball team is, you know, called the Invaders, and they got a little gray alien there as their mascot. So we were able to get the mayor in and him just talk about the town's history. And his interview was very good, and that's how the movie starts off. It doesn't jump right into the crash. Of course, we get into the crash. We get into the cover-up. We get into some of the new theories. And then we also get into some new sightings as well, because people are still seeing UFOs in those areas. You know, it's not something that ever stopped. And that's what people, I think, fail to think about, at least like the general public. They think, oh, yeah, UFO crash there, yada, yada. There's still UFO sightings there today. We had a girl, she let us put our footage in the movie, and she had it on YouTube, but it only had like 200 hits, so it was pretty much unseen footage that we were able to put in the movie that she had seen on the 4th of July while the fireworks were going off. You see the fireworks, and then you see this object just sitting there still. Looks like it's watching them. You know, and then she said after they were filming, when they were leaving, the thing drove over the top of flew over the top of the cars. So, you know, we tried to capture all that in the 45 minutes, but I think definitely the mayor was what kind of set the movie apart. There's also a segment where we talk about the museum and how, you know, important that place is, not only as a museum, but as a library. You got Stanton Freeman had donated all of his work to it. They have just catalogs and catalogs of people's life's work that's in there. It's a very interesting place, and the whole town is very interesting. So it's not just about the crash. It's about the whole picture of Roswell, you know. And the coolest thing, and while you'll want to check the mayor's interview out, is not only is he the mayor, but he is also a rocket scientist and a retired FBI agent as well. So I thought that was fitting for the town of Roswell to be ran by a, you know, former FBI agent, rocket scientist.
So do you look at Roswell, or do the people of today still look at Roswell as something special, or is it just a tourist attraction that they all believe because of the money it brings into the community?
Well, you know, I look at it from an outsider. I guess if you were there and you owned the business, it would be good to get into that and make money off of that. So it does help their economy. Does help their town thrive, because their town completely went, and you can still see parts of the town that are just like not developed anymore. They're just run down, because when that base closed right there, they lost a third of their population. So that town's had a long road to recovery, and the UFO thing helped them. But like, to me, it's kind of a special event. You know, a lot of people put the time into that. It was definitely a big event. It was the only time our government ever admitted that they had a flying disc. So, I mean, it's really kind of a special thing.
You know what, rude of me here, I forgot to even ask you the name of your film.
It's Roswell 70 years later. Yeah, so the name in itself just kind of says it. We've got the people in there, and we got their opinions and all that, and go over the facts, and that's it.
Were you able to talk to anybody who lived in the area who actually remembers it? Maybe they were a 5 to 12 or 15-year-old child at that time?
No. Those people are really hard to come across, so we tried. The problem is most of them are not with us anymore. You know, had this film been made at 50 years, then those people would have still been alive. But, They're just not with us, and we have the documents that they left behind, the letters, the recordings, and the pictures and stuff, and that's so that also kind of makes it special, to me at least, because you're looking into this stuff and you can't talk to these people anymore, but you're reading the clues that they left behind for you. You know what I mean? You're reading the information.
What was the attitude of when you looked back in time? Because obviously to do this, you do have to look back in time. What was the attitude of the people today of the way the military tried to cover this up?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a good cover-up, okay? I mean, it was something, like with me, what I finally think with Roswell is that, okay, the government knew what the War of the Worlds thing did to the general public when they thought aliens were invading or had came to Earth. So you had to know, thinking about that, what it was going to do to the public when you said you had remnants of a flying disc. And so you got to look at it. Are they telling the truth, or was that part of a cover-up? Were they trying to cover up something so bad that they threw out we had a flying disc, and then they turn around and they say it was a weather balloon? But you go to the crash site, it's clearly not a weather balloon that made that. Balsa wood and the aluminum foil will never make that kind of an impact on the ground. But yeah, that's the cover-up wasn't really a good one. The military was more or less aggressive, and you got to figure this is back in the 40s, late 40s. So when the military told you something, back then the people trusted the government. You didn't have all this info wars and stuff that you got going on now. Back then, if the military said a certain way, oh, hey, you okay, yep, they're doing what's best in our interest. After all, we just won the war, patriotism is at an all-time high, and they just kind of dropped it. But yeah, the military kind of bullied them into believing their horrible cover-up. Had that cover-up been used today, it wouldn't have flown,
Do people still wonder what happened to the aliens?
Well, you have the whole part where some people don't believe there were bodies, and then you got some people that, acknowledge that there were bodies. But I guess the people, like the curator from the museum, and it's kind of split there in the town. You've got some people that don't like it. You got some people that don't embrace that whole UFO thing, so they don't want to talk about it. And of course, there were no aliens. It was a government experiment or something like that. And then you got the people that believe. And of course, there were aliens there, if you ask them. So, and they get kind of angry about it because they get this. They catch ridicule too. It's just like with the Bigfooting. They're catching, noise about it as well, and they don't like it. And when you hear these people actually talk from the heart, and they're telling you what they think about the government and the government cover-up, you can hear the passion in their voice. So it's two cards there. You got your people that believe and your people that don't.
What do you believe happened there?
Yeah, I kind of think I know something crashed. Something left that huge crater. I mean, that crater is massive. We were going to get a bird's eye view of it for the film, but for some reason you can't fly over the crash site. Don't know why. It's in the middle of nowhere. But I think they were trying to cover up something that they were doing that was not good. I think then Unit 731, for some reason the plane crashed, or whatever ship they had crashed and spilled some stuff out and made some people sick, and to cover it up, they said it was aliens. And then they thought about it and they're like, oh yeah, hey, okay, it wasn't aliens. It was this other top secret project that we have going on that we're listening to the Russians. we're trying to see what they're doing. We're spying on the Russians, so we're going to go ahead and give that project up as well, for this. So to see them kind of scramble like chickens with their heads cut off, I think they were trying to cover up, because I don't honestly believe that they were foolish enough to tell the world that they had a UFO, that they had an alien spacecraft. I don't think they were, to say they had a flying disc. That's what they meant. It was UFO. It was something from outer space back then. I don't think they were foolish enough to let the rest of the world, that they would know that they had that technology. So I think they were just covering up something that they were doing with, chemical weapons.
Are you convinced it was aliens? Doesn't sound like it.
No, I don't. Me personally, it doesn't mean I don't think that there's any credibility to aliens. I firmly believe that people have been abducted and stuff, but just with the Roswell thing, and there's just so much to it. It's really, when you read the letters from the people that describe the metal, I'm kind of torn on it. When they describe the metal they found, the kind of memory metal, we didn't have nothing like that. Maybe they did make the mistake of telling the world that they had a UFO, and then we're turning around and trying to cover it up. It's just, you don't know what they were doing, and that's so I've got a few explanations in my mind of what it was. But by far the coolest thought is the aliens. But I guess at the end of the day, I just would want the truth, and it's not out there yet.
Do you think that truth will ever come out, and what do you think that truth is?
Okay, so when this movie came out, it kind of hit at a perfect time, because the CIA and all that stuff, the UFO thing that just came out from the military, I think we're getting close to where they're going to say that aliens do exist. They're going to tell us. They may tell us they don't know what they are, or they don't have no contact with them. I hope they don't tell us that, but I think the populace is getting to now where we can accept that fact. And I think it's a real thing we have to look at. You also have to look, another thing that gets forgot about is look at our technology jump since Roswell, and look at it before Roswell. Look at it in all the time, all the hundreds of years before Roswell. It ain't like people were done back then, and then look at our technology jump in the last 70 years. It's, maybe we got some of that technology. You can't throw that fact out, either. So.
Yeah, it is a big wonderment, but it has brought literally that community millions of dollars on an annual basis in tourism revenue, which is something every community, especially small town, could really use to keep their budgets going and to be able to afford different stuff without having to nail the taxpayer. Is that an angle you looked at?
Yeah, that's there. We talk about how important it is to the economy of that place. And most of the people embrace it for one reason or another. It doesn't mean they believe it, but it does mean that they embrace it and will feed their kids with that money. You know what I'm saying? So they definitely love it. They have that tourism going on, and they're lucky they do, because it's one of the few spots in the world. Seriously, they have a map that they take all the pins off every 30 days. And it's a map of the whole world. And you take your pin and you put on where you're at, where you came from. And people come from all over the planet to go to that museum, to go to Roswell, to see the sights, to hear the story, to see all that stuff. So,
did the whole concept of Roswell and what you learned through this adventure and this film, which can be found on Amazon, Did it change your mind about, or open your eyes, maybe even look at it that way, about UFOs and extraterrestrials?
It did, because there's some things in the story. I mean, and looking at the crash site, because you have the government give this lame cover-up of it's a weather balloon, but hey, I promise you, that crash site did not happen from a weather balloon at all. And so it kind of opens your eyes, because you getting into some of the eyewitness reports and what they've seen and stuff. And these things actually happened. These people had no reason to lie about this. It wasn't a hoax. I mean, something actually did crash. Now, it's whether you believe it was the military or you believe it was aliens. And don't everything in that point to it even being a possibility that it was the military. There's a good argument there to say it's aliens, and it definitely opened my eyes into it, into the subject, made me want to look into other things, and which is we've been making a film on Dulce now, the Dulce base, so it definitely opened my eyes into the UFO world, because especially being a Bigfoot researcher and researching into other things, there's a ton of information out there that I don't know about yet that I can grab and study. And so it's kind of cool. And we've been working on, because at Dulce, there's this whole underground alien U.S. government base there. So we went out there one time already and interviewed people and stuff. And so digging into the Roswell thing made me want to be a ufologist.
Do you find, though, that with the field of ufology, the way things have gone down, because let's face it, for the last 6 weeks since the New York Times article, there's been a lot of things up in the air with the entire field. It's really, upset the apple cart, to use probably a nonsensical cliche in that topic. But do you feel that the realm of UFOs is only going to get a little bit larger as mankind starts to realize, and especially the American citizen starts to realize that their own government has been covering this up?
When it comes out, I don't think it's going to bother nobody. I mean, honestly, people today are such, and I think this is also by design, but they're such zombies. They're staring at their cell phones how many hours a day? They're not going to care. The attention spans of a gnat nowadays. And I think this is the perfect time for them to tell something like that, because they're going to be like, oh, well, all right, whatever. Still going about my day. I'm still only caring about my Snapchat or my Facebook. I think it's the perfect time, because back then, had they admitted that and not covered it up, people weren't desensitized to the fact of aliens. People have been terrified, man. It would have destroyed so much of the structure that was built, back then, that we had going for us as a country. If you told these, people who, I mean, let's face it, back then were not broad-minded or open-minded. People were very closed-minded. The Bible, all that. We had a certain way we lived. And when you look at it nowadays, and it's not like that. It's all about different kinds of things. So I don't think it would actually affect people that much, if they were to go ahead and do it. I don't think it would bother people at all.
I think that's why they're also really trying to separate aliens from UFOs, because it's easy not to be afraid of a UFO. But if you all of a sudden saw 4 or 5 grays walking towards you, that's a whole different ballgame right there for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's why I think they're just kind of easing into it. You know what I mean? Hey, we don't know what these things are. Well, that's what the pilot said. But who knows what the president knows? Maybe we do know something. And I think they're kind of starting to ease it. and having the government put out this footage, and then the CIA tweeted a photo like days later after that. I think they're just kind of, starting to open up to it, and even with like back during the election, you had the WikiLeaks thing, talking about John Podesta. I'm sure you know about that.
Yes, sir.
Talk about maybe it's time. And, I hate to go back to Bigfoot, but I also think our government knows about that. So I don't think we need proof. I think we need disclosure. I think they know good and well what's running around in the woods, just like they know what's flying around in the skies. These guys ain't idiots.
Let's go back there. Well, let's go back there for a second. Why do you think the government has research and record of Bigfoot being alive?
How could they not? First of all, because let's say it's 1972, and you're riding down the road, run over a Sasquatch. What do you do? Or hell, we can even say it today. You go down the road, you hit a Sasquatch. What do? You call the authorities. You don't know what to do with it. You call the authorities. They come, they get the body. It's gone. You don't never hear another word about it. Yeah, sure, go tell some people you hit a Sasquatch. Go ahead and do it all day long. See what they think about you. And another reason is if you look at the forests in America, I can't speak for Canada, but in America, all of these national parks and all this stuff is like Apalachicola National Forest, where I'm at, massive forest. It's one big tree farm. They have it all planted. They log it, and it's all the government. So the government is the biggest logging industry in America. Or, they're the biggest logging company in America. When the owl out in, I can't remember what type of owl it was right now, but anyways, the owl that was found to not be extinct out on I think it was found in Oregon. Anyways, it shut the logging industry down out there for a while. They had to find habitat and stuff, and you're looking, if the government knows, let's say they had a Sasquatch at some point in time, if they know they're so close to human and that we may have a different species of human out there in the woods, what does that mean? That's a kind of a big deal. So I think they would want to keep that, close to the chest, and be pretty tight-lipped about it.
Well, that does make sense, unless they want to study this creature for any type of scientific experimentation as well. Do you buy into the story? I'm going to stick with Bigfoot here for one more second because I'm curious now of your opinion now that you brought this up. Do you buy into the story about the, I think it was around 1999 or so, the forest fire in the Sierra Nevadas, where apparently a Bigfoot that was burning from the forest fire came out and received some sort of first aid from people? Or the firefighters?
Yeah, I actually do. There was a tsunami warning over the weekend. I think it was the 22nd in this Alaskan town. And the alarms are going off. And all these people see this family of Sasquatch running up the mountain. You know what I mean? But yeah, with that, I think any kind of natural disaster like that is going to increase your chances of these things fleeing the woods and seeing them. There's actually a guy, the interview's on my YouTube page, the Apalachicola Skunkape Project. I interviewed a local guy that I've known since I was a kid. He met me one day and he said, "I need to talk to you about something. I want to tell you a story." And then I talked him into going on the interview, but I had to distort his voice and mask his face for him to do it. But there was a huge fire here, and he had ran over a Skunkape and killed it dead. And these guys came, picked the body up. They took him back to the little headquarters there on Helena Guard Road, and just told him pretty much, "Hey, if you ever say anything about this, we're going to ruin you. You're not." And he was 21 years old. He didn't know he just became, he'd just gotten into forestry. and he didn't want everything. That was his career. He didn't want to lose everything he had, so he shut his mouth. And so I definitely think that our government knows about it, and I think they've had more than enough opportunities to get a body for research. I think they know exactly what these things are, and for some reason or another, they don't want to admit, that they're out there. And I don't know if it's because it's some other type of man. How would everybody feel if there was some other type of, that all our ancestors, Neanderthals or Heidelbergensis or whatever, didn't go extinct? What if it's still out there in the woods walking around? Like, what kind of human rights is that? What kind of human rights issue is that? So I think that they have more than enough reason to hide it, and I think they've had more than enough reasons to study it. So I think they're just covering it all up.
Before we get to the thought of the Dave, and you're more than welcome to stick around for that, we do it the final 15 minutes of the show. If you want to hang out, we're going to be talking Bigfoot anyways, and we'd love to keep you around. I do want to get to Andrew's question here on Twitter, and that is, do you not sense, Stacy, that these topics of the paranormal, like Sasquatch, just seem always a little out of reach, like seeing a dollar bill on the ground, and when you almost get your hand on it, someone pulls it away? Why does the paranormal, in your opinion, seem like this?
I mean, because you have to think about what's happening. I mean, you have to register something else in your mind that's also a big deal. As Sasquatch is a tall order itself, now we're talking about the Sasquatch just completely vanished, disappeared, or it's a ball of energy and it turned into a Sasquatch, or it's draining my camera. You're never going to capture evidence of it. It's never going to be one of these things where you get on film. It's like you said, you'll see it. It's like that dollar bill, and then you go down to pick it up, and it gets pulled away from you. It is definitely one of those instances.
All right, we're going to go to the thought of the day right now. Thought of the day happens every single night on this show, where during the day I put my Facebook page up to you guys with a question regarding the topic of the night. Now, of course, we were talking Sasquatch. And when we talk Sasquatch, there are things that I want to know. There are things that, you may want to know, and I want to know your opinion, because this show is all about you guys. It's all about you. So, Stacy's going to stick around. The question today, in today's Thought of the Day, is this: do you think Sasquatch is a hominid or some sort of alien or supernatural type creature that we just do not understand? Please tell me which one you think it is and tell me why. We had a few responses on this, starting off with Coral. And Stacy, feel free to chime on in anytime if you want to, talk about one of these comments our great listeners brought. So this is from Coral. She says, I just don't know what it is. Today, I'm leaning towards some type of hominid that came up from Africa over the land bridge and families so long ago. Groups have spread out worldwide. However, the mental telepathy some speak of have experienced intrigues me, because sometimes you could feel or maybe hear what an animal is thinking. Or is that just a gut feeling? I don't know. I do know that reports of Sasquatch around here in the West Kootenays, which is the southeast corner of British Columbia. She says they spend time walking bush rocks, hounding, and need to be aware of what the sounds are or could be when I'm out there, just like I would with any other wild animal. So with that, where she brings up the whole point that a lot of people feel they can have some sort of telepathic communication with Sasquatch, Stacy, are you buying into that? Is that something that you believe could be possible?
Well, that gut feeling that's something that people ignore. We simply call it a gut feeling, and that's it. But that may be we may share some of these characteristics with them. We may have some of these things that we've just lost over time, some of these abilities that we just don't tap into. It's like if you ever have been sitting there and then you look across the room and there's this person staring at you, it's like you knew you were being watched. You know what I mean? You had that feeling, or you had that gut feeling that if you were going to do something, something was going to go wrong, and then you did it and it went wrong, just like your gut feeling told you. I think that maybe it may be paranormal to us, but it doesn't mean we don't have them abilities and we just ignore them. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. You know, I tend to, just in case, I tend to play on the fact that it might be true. I really do. I just tend to believe that it might be true. And I know when I go into the forest, the first thing I do is I put tobacco around. That's the first thing I do, is some burning tobacco into the area right where we're going to go there. And, I say my little words that I say them actually quite loud. So just in case there's any animals in the area, they can now know that I'm there. I park in the exact same spot when we go into the bush, into our gifting site area, and I just think that there might be something to it. So just in case there is, that's the reason why I do it, because if I believe that there's some sort of interdimensional being or have some sort of shape-shifting or cloaking capability, which I do believe due to my experiences, there has to be something to it. So I just don't want to lose out on the chance just in case. Just in case.
Of course.
You never know. Let's get to Mark's question. Now, Mark here is actually the guy I set up the gifting site with. And he says, although I have spent years working and playing in the bush and have yet to see one, I'm thinking animal. But an animal so keen on not being found, it has developed the needed skills to stay hidden. We are so polluted with sounds of city life and smells we cannot compare to their keen senses. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the reason I go usually like 10 days by myself, a week to 10 days, because after a few days, you actually start becoming a part of the woods. You get your senses. You can get to where you can smell again. About that fifth day, you're really kicking in there. And I believe that thoroughly. It may not, like I said earlier, it may not be something special. It's just they may be a master of that environment. You would know if somebody's walking into your living room, and if they're wanting to stay hidden, they're going to know you're in their living room as soon as you get there, and they're going to hide from you. It's not going to be hard because we're not as keen on our senses as they are.
Adam, who we call around here Ad Gnome, he's got an absolute addiction to gnomes for some reason. Don't know why. It's almost strange. And he knows I hate the little bastards. That's one of the things. You can put an alien in front of me, man. It's not going to scare me as much of a gnome. And garden gnomes, oh. Anyway, so he has to bug the living hell out of me here every single day. And Ad Gnome, as we call him now, says crossbreeding between a gnome and an ape made Bigfoot. He goes, man, I have no idea. Like, really? Really, Ad Gnome?
Are gnomes a real thing? Is this something people actually think exists?
My daughter is she just turned 19 a week ago, and she is very intuitive and connected, if we could use those words, and she has been since very young in life. And when everybody's heard the story, but I'll let you in on the story. When my wife and I split up, I rented a basement suite very close to where my daughter lived because I wanted to stay close to her and close to her school as well. And I remember we were walking daytime one time, and she says, "Dad, those garden gnomes in my landlord's yard, in his garden, his name was Mark, freaked her out." And so I said, why? And so she started telling me about how at night in her bedroom, in my 2-bedroom basement suite, she would hear tapping at her windows. And the street lamp would light up the backyard or the side yard where her bedroom window looked into. And she said one time she actually saw the shadow in the pointy hat at her window. And when she got up from her bed to look, this thing took off towards where all the garden gnomes were. So ever since then, them garden gnomes, man, nope, don't like them. Don't like them. And if you want to scare my daughter and I, you know, it's all about garden gnomes. Can handle anything but them damn garden gnomes. Can't do it. Just can't do it.
Wow.
So that's the story
cool.
there. And I believe my daughter. My daughter, like I said, she has been highly intuitive since she was a youngster. We started noticing it around when she was 18 months old. So, you know, when she tells me a story of something that happened, I really believe her, because she wouldn't BS me on that. Let's get to another one. Sylvia says, years ago, I used to think Bigfoot was a mistake that the government made in their tests and discarded it in a remote part of the country. If it's true, it survived and mated. Today, I think definitely is not from our world. I think it can disguise itself at will. What their purpose is here has to do something with aliens. They might be collecting info for them or getting people for them to eat. LOL. Whatever it is, it's not good. Now, she had me up until the whole aliens eating people. She really did. But I kind of lean towards I think it can disguise itself at will, but the purpose, I have no idea. And I don't think Sasquatch is the cold-blooded killer that many people want to believe because of Hollywood or whatever it is. I don't believe that.
You know, Hollywood's had a good effect on that, turning everything into something bad, you know. So, but hey, whatever sells tickets, I guess.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? And we got time for one more here. The final one comes from Michael, and he says, I tend to think that they are a natural hominid that has been here for a very long time. I am not convinced that Sasquatches are supernatural, alien, can disappear at will, etc. I have seen them, and they look solid, and they did not do anything that I would consider to be unusual behavior. Well, you live in Oregon, so maybe, just maybe, Michael, maybe they were having a little doobie in the side with some of that wild growth that's out in your area. I'm just teasing, man. I'm just teasing. But, you know, I mean, that's the argument right there. We got Sylvia saying one. We have Michael saying the other. And this debate is something, Stacy, that will continue, isn't it?
Yes, it is for the time being.
Mm-hmm. Once again, as the show starts to wind down here, my friend, we got about a minute left. Very fast 3 hours tonight. Could you please tell people where they can find your information, where they can view your movie?
You can check the movie out, Roswell 70 Years Later, on Amazon. My website, floridaskunkapeproject.org. Check me out on Twitter at Bigfoot Stacy, and Facebook Stacy Brown Jr. and Florida Skunkape Project. I appreciate you having me on tonight, man, and hope to do it again soon.
No problem whatsoever. Yeah, we definitely got to do this again, my friend. It was absolutely fantastic. Do me a favor, hold on while I wrap this thing up, if you don't mind. I'm just going to stick you nice and quiet there. We want to say thank you to Stacy Brown Jr. for going the distance tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We also want to say tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, at spacedoutradio.com, we have the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. I'm going to bring in some friends. We're going to debate the first month of 2018, the month that was. And we hope you all join us as well. Once again, it can be heard at spacedoutradio.com. We want to say thank you to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL for rocking us into the tonight's show with Little Brother Is Watching, playing in the background right now. Bumblefoot is the official music of SOR, rocking us in and out of every single show, every single night right here. And we appreciate him doing that. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Don't forget our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. So you go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio to hear our archives. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. We have our GoFundMe account going on right now as we try to build a brand new studio here at SOR headquarters. GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night, and you can become a patron of SOR for just $1 a month. Go to Patreon.com/Spaced Out Radio. I want to say thank you to everybody listening at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. You're awesome. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for sharing this show and being a big part of us growing on an each and every night. I want to say thank you to everybody on Periscope. You know who you are. Thanks for watching us live on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. The veterans and the SOR Space Travelers, and on Spreaker. You guys made it a lot of fun because together, my friends, we own the night. I'll talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a little help here. We need you to take us home. See you later. Good night.